It seems like so many Hollywood kids these days are gender confused. Let's talk about it. Have you noticed that there is a disproportionate number of celebrities with gender non-conforming kids? It's either the social contagion of a dangerous ideology or a curious medical anomaly concentrated just in Hollywood. Actress Naomi Watts is the latest to show off her gender non-conforming child. Her 15-year-old son Samuel now identifies as her daughter Kai. And just last week, it was Jennifer Lopez's daughter, Em, declaring herself non-binary, which is interesting because her partner, Ben Affleck, has a teenager who has also come out as non-binary. What are the statistical odds of this happening? Think about it. It's almost zero. Is there something in the Hollywood Hills water? Scary movie star Marlon Wayans has a son who used to identify as gay but now identifies as a girl. Interestingly, Wayans says the real transition was not his son's transition from male to female, but his own transition as parent from, as he puts it, ignorance and denial to loving and accepting. But is it loving to enable your child's delusions? Does a good parent accept and cheer their child's mental illness, or does a good parent get them help?
Children do know who they are.
At what age?
At 3, 4, 5, they know who they are when they're switching and swirling. They know who they are.
So for a grown man to be sitting there dressed like that, dressed as, with a wig, and pushing a child to be able to make that decision, that's borderline pedophile crap. And I'll tell you why. Because if you're at that age, a grown man, saying a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old can make their own decision to chop off their genitalia, then guess what? Especially in the courts, then that kid, who's to say that kid can't say who they want to have sex with? You know what? I want to have sex with this grown man, Dad.
5-time Academy Award nominee Annette Bening told Hollywood Reporter that she wished that every family could have a trans child. She describes having a trans child as, and I quote, a deep, complex, spiritual, physical, psychological experience. Well, that's just one way of putting it, I guess.
I would hope that people would find someone in their lives who's a trans person, and there might be someone that they don't know. And if you're even luckier, you have someone in your family.
Ali Sheedy, who some viewers will recall from The Breakfast Club, has a son who used to be her daughter. She said parents need to educate themselves, obviously implying that if you disagree or don't understand, the problem is your lack of education. She, however, is enlightened. Are you sensing a common theme here? All these Hollywood stars boast about how having a trans or non-binary child is evidence of how loving, how educated, and how enlightened they all are. Maybe it's not so much gender fluidity in the Hollywood water supply as a very, very heavy concentration of narcissism. Speaking of narcissism, Tori Spelling and Dean McDermott have a gay son and a transgender son. All they need now is a lesbian daughter and a bisexual child to complete the full LGBTQIA2S+ set. Actress Busy Phillips, best known for her roles in Dawson's Creek and ER, has a son who uses they/them pronouns. She boasts that her son can be a boy, or if he prefers, maybe something that doesn't exist, end quote.
Birdie came out when they were 10. It was really sweet because Birdie said, "There's a word that I am. I know what the word is." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you have a word? That's so great. What's the word?" And Birdie said gay. And I was like, well, that's a great word. I love it. They felt like a big relief from it. And then Birdie's identity as non-binary, they, them pronouns.
Now forgive me. I'm all for being open-minded, but you can be so open-minded that your entire brain falls out of your head. Trans children in Hollywood are like Oscar nominations. All the cool people have at least one. Actress Jamie Lee Curtis has told journalists how she, and I quote, watched in pride and wonder as our son became our daughter, end quote. You could be forgiven for thinking she'd raised a caterpillar or something rather than a child. Walking Dead star Kari Payton actually encouraged his child to come out as trans on Instagram. Payton said of his daughter, quote, "He was born female, but he has always identified as a boy. I thought it would be cool if he announced it on social media." Well, of course, announce it on social media. You've got to keep generating all those likes now, don't you? Shall I keep listing Hollywood stars with children inexplicably trapped in the wrong bodies? It's almost a prerequisite for a film career these days. Charlize Theron is described as the proud mum of a transgender daughter who is able to live her truth thanks to her mother's progressive parenting style, end quote. Do you see what I mean about Hollywood celebrities? They make their child's gender confusion an indicator of their own enlightenment.
I will anybody up who's like trying to with anything with you guys. No more room for hate. Only love, and love equals drag queen. There's so many things that are hurting and really killing our kids, and we all know what I'm talking about right now, and it ain't no drag queen.
Gay social commentator Milo Yiannopoulos once said that trans children were typically the result of parents feeling like failures for having a gay child. He said parents of gay children often felt like they had somehow failed their kids. But if their child was not gay at all, well, if their child was simply trapped in the wrong body and needed to be set free, well, in that case, he said, a mum and a dad could transition themselves from the failed parents of a gay child to the enlightened, progressive saviors of a trans child. And the more you read about Hollywood stars and their trans kids, that's exactly the impression that you get. Cher has a son who used to be her daughter. So does Grammy Award-winning singer Sadie. Sting's child is non-binary. Cindy Bishop, who became famous on Real Housewives of New York, told People magazine that her daughter realized she was a he at age 6. Age 6. And incidentally, how amazing that while most parents were trying to teach their 6-year-old to tie their shoes, Cindy Bishop was able to guide her 6-year-old into a gender transition. Who needs an Oscar? Just make her the parent of the year. Sex and the City actress Cynthia Nixon said her daughter's transition to male was a non-event, end quote. That's how far we've come, she said. That's how far we've come. Notice once again, it's all about how the rest of the world is catching up with how enlightened and accepting she is. I could go on. Trans kids in Hollywoods are as common as Hollywood divorces. But you have to ask yourself why. Are they the result of more enlightenment than what the rest of us are? Or is this the celebrity class who have latched onto the latest method of self-promotion using their own offspring as leverage? Most ordinary people would understand that celebrities typically have highly dysfunctional lives. The fact that gender dysphoria is so common, as I've shown you, in Hollywood, is not an endorsement. It is a warning. Something in the Hollywood Hills water is not right. The smart people among us will make sure that they drink from a different source. I'm Senator Ralph Babet for the United Australia Party.